Good morning, St. Francis. Good morning, people of God. Today is Thursday, the 6th day of June, 2024. It is Thursday of the 9th week of the year, the 9th week in Ordinary Time. Today is also the 80th anniversary of the Normandy landings, D-Day, back in 1944. Again, that hastened the conclusion of World War II. So remembering that day, remembering the fact that it's Thursday of the 9th week of the year. There is our chapel there in the background today. Again, variable day today. It's going to be a little bit rainy later on today. We'll see what happens. But if you give it a moment's notice, you're going to listen. You can only hear birds because it's a very quiet day today. Our school, the Franciscan school, has concluded for the school year. It is now summer break for them. Teachers are here cleaning up, getting ready to finish up some work and whatever it is. But no noise. It's very bizarre. Our preschool let out last week, so that noise was stalled, last week, and now the Franciscan school. It's kind of a very lonely campus right now because they're not here. It's like when you have over 700, if you count the preschool, 700 children running around the campus day after day. It is kind of a jarring shock not to have them around the very first day that they're not around, because for these couple of weeks. It's not really months of summer break. It's just a couple of weeks, but still not having them around is a loss. And so we wait for their return, wish them well for happy summer and things like that. But our readings for this Thursday of the 9th week of the year, second letter of Timothy, again, continues. And again, just so that we have an idea, again, Timothy, bishop, overseer, he was a leader within the community that that Paul is writing to. But not a bishop as we understand bishops today. No mitre, no crozier, no finery, no pastoral cross, nothing like that. No sort of living on a hill apart from everybody else. Timothy seems to be intimately involved with the life of his people, because again, his community is small. Again, one of our great detriments in our church today is that our dioceses are so large. And it's almost as if there's a reluctance to appoint more bishops because they don't get along, something like that. And so if you have any more of them, life is going to become difficult for the church. And so we have these great geographic areas where one man is positioned to be the caretaker, the overseer, the father, quote unquote, of all. And it just is an impossible task. And an unfair task too, in many ways. Again, this is not what Christ desired, and yet we think that it is, and it's what the church desires, and so there we go with it. So, but in Timothy's situation, again, this small community that he is in charge of, going through, I guess, a lot of difficulty. It's interesting, this part of the letter, Paul cautions, don't get so caught up on words, don't get so caught up on arguments, in writing down, again, things that I guess would have been discussions about who Jesus is and how does Jesus work in our lives. Again, we're beginning to move into those Christological controversies, of just trying to understand who this Messiah is, that God walked among us, impossible, cannot be, and Jesus was just a great human being and things like that. And so that's tearing apart the community, or is the community struggling because it's trying to understand these kinds of things. And Paul is counseling Timothy, not to give up and not to forget, who we are as believers, and the God who has called us into being, and the God who continues to want us to thrive and prosper as a community, not to get caught up in battles and discussions and debates and things like that. Sometimes that's where our church is today, more concerned with battles and debates and discussions about how to perfectly live this life rather than just living it. And that's the point that perhaps this part of the letter calls us back to. It's not a celebration about being bishops. It's not a celebration about the episcopacy. It's basically a challenge to this man who is a leader of this very nascent, just small beginnings community in the early Christian movement, and how he is being called to hold everything together and not forget why it is that God has called him to be a bishop, or called the community itself into existence. And that's important always for us to consider and to remember. Bishops have a very difficult job, and it's not a job anybody should ever want, because it can be a very lonely job, a job in which you're pulled in so many directions, trying to please so many peoples, it becomes impossible to do anything. And so here we have Paul cautioning Timothy not to get caught up in rules and regulations, not to be caught up in enforcing rules and regulations, but to always be caught up in love for the people that he is the overseer for, love for the God who has called him to this position, love for creation that he is called to help other people see the glory and the beauty of. connects in some ways with the Gospel from Mark, again, where this good scribe, again, not all scribes are bad, not all Pharisees are bad, not all teachers of the law were bad. The problem is we don't see many of them. And so here we have the one good scribe, it seems, in Mark's Gospel, who asks Jesus a good question, the greatest of the commandments, because you probably want to know that. And Jesus says, really, it's not one of the commandments that's a commandment. He basically, it's loving God, yes, but it's also loving your neighbor as yourself. And again, this is where John perhaps gets his remembering of Jesus saying the greatest commandment, as Jesus says, is love one another, as Jesus says at the end of the Last Supper speeches that he gives, begins perhaps with Mark, in Mark's memory of this. But that's the whole point, love. Love is what binds us together. Love is what enables us to become who it is that we are called to become. Love is what nourishes. Love is what fortifies. Love is what protects. Love's great power can never be forgotten. It can never be underestimated. It can never be dismissed easily. Love is everything to us. And as bishops, their chief job, is to promote love and to never stop promoting love and to help people see the wonder and the beauty of love. Not to be caught up in rules and regulations and enforcing rules and regulations, but in enforcing love and the power that love has for us, in store for us, because love, finding its origin in God, finding its origin in all things that are divine, enables us to see the power of the divine awake and alive inside of us. A blessed day, St. Francis and people of God. May the Lord give you his peace.